I've been blessed to be a student of Master Kang. It will be 39 years this February. When I was a kid, I wanted to fight like Bruce Lee. My mother, who's here, took me down to Master Kang's school in 1974. She was sick in bed, but I talked her out of that. She drove me down to sign up. When I was signing up, she said to the secretary who signed me up, "What if he wants to quit?" I said, "Mom, I'm not going to quit." "Mom, I'm still not going to quit." And by the way, when I saw Master Kang move and kick, I thought, he's better than Bruce Lee. One of the things that he taught us was that everything we do has to have a purpose. He said, when you come down to the school, you need to think about why you're here. What's the purpose for your training? He told us, he said, the reason you're learning martial arts is to fight. Many of us, our students and masters that are here, have been training under him for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We've been learning to fight for that long. The reason Master Kang told us you're learning to fight is to improve yourself so that you can help others. That's the essence of martial arts. That's what he taught us. He taught us 3 principles. The first one was respect. We need to learn to respect ourselves so we can take care of others. He said quite often, you need to cut out your bad habit. And he would get mad. He said, you need to cut out the bad habit. He also said, you need to believe. We called him Sabunim. In the martial art world, you have 2 fathers. You have your biological father, and you have your martial art father. Each one takes care of you in a different way. Master Kang was our Sabunim, wisdom, teacher, serve, father. That's how we thought of him. He taught us that we had to believe. We had to learn to make the impossible possible. How do you do that? Through systematic training. Where's Grace? Do you remember Grace? He said, how to type? He said, when you start typing, you go A, A, B, B, J, J, K, K. He said, that's okay when you start, but you have to learn to use all your fingers. It's a little difficult at first, but after a while, you can type like this. And he must have told us hundreds of times, Grace can type 100 words a minute. Grace is a 4th Dan under Master Kang. The third principle, appreciation. I think this was the most important principle that he taught us. He told us many stories. One of the stories was when he was in the Korean War and he was a prisoner. He was in this metal airplane hangar. There was no air conditioner. There was no fan. There was no water. There was no bathroom. He said there were hundreds of us scrunched up. That's all we did. For 3 months, they were in this hot airplane hangar. 3 months they didn't get out. People would die. People would fall over. He said at the end of 3 months, they walked out. And he said, the air. He said, I appreciated the air. I could breathe freely, the air. 60 years later, he told us that story. He still appreciated breathing. That's the kind of lesson we need to learn from Master Kang. You know, over the last year, he's been teaching in the master class some techniques that he's never taught anybody before. About a month ago, 2 months ago, one Thursday night, he did a demonstration of some of the techniques. Those in the room literally felt almost like the building shook when he did those moves. In fact, Eric said to me it was scary. It was so powerful. Here's a man, he's elderly, he's not far from passing, and he demonstrated techniques none of us had ever seen before, none of us could do. It literally blew our minds. About 2 weeks ago, I visited him at Mercy General Hospital. He was in the emergency department. And he'd had that infection in his spine. He'd been complaining about the back pain. And in fact, he asked several of us, you ever hurt your back? And I said, yes, sir. His back pain was much more intense than any of us have ever experienced. That was an infection in his spine. He was in the emergency department on a gurney. He was laying flat. And in the hospital, they ask you, what's your pain level? 0 is no pain. 10 is excruciating pain. He was at a 10. This is one of the toughest guys I've ever met. He was at a 10. But his face was fairly calm. So I was talking to him, and I said, sir, when you did those techniques a couple weeks ago, we couldn't believe it. I said, we've never seen anything like that before. I said, do you think we could videotape you doing that? You know what he said, maybe. He looked up at me, and he said, Jim, I want to show you the next move. He said, the next move is better. You know, I was talking to my wife this weekend, and I said, you know, we're not going to get to learn the next move. I said, we'll never know what the next move is. A couple of days ago, I got an email from Mark Berry. Mark is 6 Dan, trained with Master Kang for years, one of his high-ranking students. And in the email, he wrote this message. That's what happens when you get it. Mark wrote, I spoke to Master Kang just a few days ago and asked about how he was doing. And he spoke of the school and its future. He told me, train more. At first I thought it a bit unsatisfactory, but then I realized that the message to me was that we did have most of what we need, and he did not leave us without direction or in a vacuum. My sense was we know a whole lot, that we got the main route, and if we stay on the program, we will be empowered with the knowledge of the techniques he has given us. Thanks, Mark. You know, I think Master Kang was telling Mark and us, we need to step it up. He's passed the ball to us. Often while I was training in the dojang, Master Kang would walk by and he'd say, Jim? And I'd say, yes, sir. And he said, Jim, you're too physical. And I'd say, yes, sir. And what does that mean? You just told us last week we have to practice this technique 1,000 times. I wasn't sure what that meant. When I was in the emergency department, that same visit, and he was in excruciating pain, I had the privilege of praying with James and participating in a prayer. We closed our eyes, we prayed. When I opened my eyes and looked at Master Kang, his whole countenance had changed. He had a big smile on his face, and he was happy. He said, thank you. I got it. I figured out what he was talking about being too physical. What he's telling us, what he was telling me, as your body gets older, we're getting older. As our body gets older, we need to increase our spirituality. We need to know the Lord more. I can tell you, Master Kang knew the Lord. He was at peace. Mrs. Kang and the entire Kang family, I can tell you, your husband, your dad, and to the grandkids, he loved you guys a lot. He talked a lot about you guys. But I also have to tell you, to the grandkids, I think he loved you guys the most. That's kind of the deal when you get grandkids. I know, I have my sons over here. You take a back seat. Where's Sharon? You know, Sharon, when we had our master's class, Master Kang would talk to the seniors, and he would talk about you. He talked about all of the grandkids, how much you guys did. But he would say, you guys need to practice like Sharon. She practices gymnastics every day. She practices the piano. He said, you guys need to practice harder. We said, yes, sir, we will. Mrs. Kang and the entire Kang family, may our dear Lord be your peace. May our dear Lord be your rest. Amen.